What's up everybody, welcome to FoundFlix. On today's Ending Explained, we'll be looking into the ridiculous world of high art in Velvet Buzzsaw, a satirical horror comedy where mysterious paintings seem connected and perhaps somehow responsible for a string of unexplainable murders. When I first heard of this movie, featuring the reteaming of Jake Gyllenhaal, Rene, Russo, and writer-director Dan Gilroy of the excellent Nightcrawler a few years back, this looked like a bizarre and interesting direction to go for a follow-up. The trailer promising a strange balance of horror and art world takedown. The end result is much less horror than I expected and much more of a satirical expose of the world of high-dollar modern art. But it actually was a lot funnier and more clever, with its many over-the-top characters and situations than I expected. Every one of these characters being completely driven by money and greed. It's all held together by a pitch-perfect cast, led by Jake Gyllenhaal, who was so perfect in his role of the snooty art critic, and it's thanks to his performance the movie works as well as it did for me. Also including small yet appreciated supporting roles from Toni Collete, who was just robbed at the Oscars this year for not getting nominated for Hereditary. You gotta be kidding me! Along with John Malkovich, who seems to be popping up a lot more in random streaming stuff like this lately. And for Stranger Things fans, there's Natalia Dyer as the naive Coco, who doesn't really have much to do at all, but she's there, looking extra Zooey Deschanel here. So the movie really is less about why these murders are happening, as this takes a backseat to the other many random subplots and subterfuge going on between the characters. But there is quite a bit to look at regarding the creepy paintings and the artist behind them, as well as the fairly open ending to look at as well. So let's check out Velvet Buzzsaw, breaking down the story, including everything we learn about the paintings as well as how they kill, and explaining the ending. We're thrown headfirst into the fast-paced, apparently high-stakes world of art dealing without much context, opening at a huge art trade show, seeing a wide variety of different modern art on display, and all for sale, meaning the collection of weirdos that populate this world, including Morph Vanderwalt. Yes, that's his real name, which is actually properly ridiculous enough to describe this character. Clad in thick glasses, flashy suit, and smug demeanor emanating from every step, he's a highly respected art critic whose reviews can make or break careers in an instant, focusing in on one of the more bizarre installations on display called Hobo Man, a hodgepodge of robo parts put together into a humanoid homeless facsimile, who uses crutches and spouts non sequiturs like, "Have you ever felt invisible?" or "One time I built a railroad." But Morph isn't impressed, recalling a similarly themed piece from years earlier, writing it off now as passé, despite the art broker really urging him to give it a chance. As we see, that's the real point of this whole charade. It's not about the art itself at all, really, but really about the high dollars that can be gained from their sale. And that is everyone's sole motivation here, to make money. Coming to another painting where he's joined by Gretchen, a curator for a local museum, wanting his opinion on the piece. Morph glibly remarking that sobriety hasn't been good for the artist, but Gretchen corrects him that it was actually painted years ago in the throes of his alcoholism. But Morph merely agrees, spouting off "exactly" before scurrying away, making a hugely embarrassing mistake here, but he's completely unfazed. It's kind of impressive how full of himself this guy really is. Now Morph isn't alone in his unabashed pretentiousness, meeting big-time art broker and dealer Redora, blithely discussing her unamusement with the use of white spaces in art, though she has taken a shine to a particular sculpture of sorts on display, a large silver sphere appropriately called Sphere, which creates a different experience depending on which hole you put an arm into. Redora feeling it to be groundbreaking and wanting Morph to give it a good review. But he's more interested in something else, as it looks as though rumor has it she might be losing her juggernaut broker status, asking about the potential of one of the artists she's been representing peers, moving to another manager called John Don Don. Some ridiculous names going on here. And at a later party we see him actually trying to woo peers to his side, wanting to market him exclusively going forward after recent disappointments with Redora. Later having to tell her higher-ups about the disappointing show in Miami, saying it's not really an art town. Yeah, right. She's already agitated and concerned when Josephina comes in, shook up about a dead body she found at her apartment building. Redora taking out her frustration on her, relegating her to the back of the showroom until she approves her performance. Devastated by this setback in her attempts to climb the ladder, an opportunity drops right into her lap. When checking her mail and seeing the building manager replacing the tag for that recently deceased neighbor, she finds out that he was an artist, him mentioning that they found lots of crazy stuff in his apartment, but that it was his wishes for it all to be destroyed. Josephina doesn't go directly to check it out, but is lured to investigate after following after his cat, finding the door unlocked, and entering into the dark, messy room, littered with paintings and drawings into unmanaged stacks all around the apartment. An absolutely insane number of pieces, which are all mildly disturbing and gothic in appearance, along with a prominently displayed portrait of a man, Dees, who is the artist behind behind all of these works. A few of the paintings are seen half destroyed in the fireplace, as one ominously begins to glow orange, in veins spreading out over the material. Probably not a good sign. But not seeing this, she takes them all for herself anyway, intrigued by what she's seen. But unaware of their worth, she needs to know if they're good, i.e. valuable, wanting a trustworthy opinion, seeking Morph's impressions of what she's found. He's blown away, describing them as visionary, and that there would be a massive market for them to Josefina's delight. Wanting to find out more about the mysterious artist behind the paintings, Morph visits Gretchen at her museum, though they find nothing in their database on D's, even though it supposedly has everyone included. Oh well, a dead end. Also, Gretchen revealing that she has big news. She's leaving the museum to become an art advisor, both obviously excited about this prospect, as this would lead to more money, but also has a more real and unfortunate side that she doesn't seem too bothered by. She initially wanted to work at the museum to change the world with art, but soon learned that rich people bought up all the good stuff, making them only seen by the most select eyes. Oh well, I guess after them screwing me out of paintings all these years, I'll go work for them, since I'll be the one getting that money. It doesn't take Redor too long to sniff out the painting, showing up at Josefina's apartment, and having her locked in a non-compete contract, is able to seize control of them for herself, while still giving Josefina a healthy percentage, clearly seeing an opportunity with the works to re-establish her wavering standing in the art world. The piece is taken to her gallery. Morph 2 wants his own piece of the D's pie, wanting rights to a book on the author as well as several pieces. While the rest of the art is being looked over by an archivist, something odd is found on the painting, it appearing to bleed from the canvas, later determining this to actually be the artist's blood, putting some of himself literally into each of his works. Well, I'm pretty sure that's not normal. Just use a fucking crayon or something. Though word is already spreading like wildfire about the pieces, setting the stage for a massively successful launch show of his works against seeing Piers, who has been suffering artistic blocks since giving up drinking, who is immediately transfixed by one of Deeze's paintings, and quickly gulps a drink down. Clearly these pieces have a profound, almost immediate effect on anyone that lays eyes on them. With the pieces selling for millions, Redor is already looking towards the future of their potential gold mine, having some of the 1,000 pieces found taken to a different location in order to drive up their scarcity. And obviously the price. Sneaky, sneaky Redora. Now you would think that considering how much potential value the art holds, they might transport them in an armored van or something, instead opting to have the building maintenance guy toss them in the back of his truck bed and do it by himself. Guess he must be really dang trustworthy. Or not, because he pulls over to take a look for himself, snatching a few as souvenirs and continuing onward. So, not trustworthy at all, as it turns out. Turns out he's a moron too, smoking a ciggy with a painting in his lap and dropping ash on it, causing it and then his lap to catch on fire. Approaching an abandoned looking gas station, whose lights seem to flicker on out of nowhere exclusively for him. Catching a glimpse of the artist in the back seat, he swerves out of control, crashing into the gas station, catching the truck on fire. Jeez, everything's on fire around this Dumbo. Seeing one of the pieces, as in the fireplace earlier, starts to glow bright in radiating veins. Tending to his burns in the bathroom, a ridiculous monkey painting seen on the wall comes to life, a monkey hand reaching out for him, followed by others all attacking. Outside, the gas station lights turning themselves off. So here we have the obviously haunted painting with Deeze's spirit, which is actually able to bring the painting in the bathroom to life to kill this dum-dum. The problem being he was trying to selfishly profit from Deeze's work. Goes to show you try to steal paintings, you get killed by monkeys coming to life in a painting. Just the way she goes. The others eventually finding no evidence of the paintings or Bryson left behind, it's assumed that he simply stole them and ran off, rather than being murdered by a monkey painting. And Morph continues his research into the unknown past of the artist, only knowing that he was essentially off the records until resurfacing as an employee at a factory in town, where he worked for decades until his death. Morph pays his old workplace a visit, questioning a guard about Deeze, and he definitely remembers the guy, mentioning a foreman that gave Deeze problems, and later the foreman was found dead. No one could ever prove that it was Deeze, but he learned to stay as far away as possible, and giving Morph another lead, a PI who had been there early asking about Deeze, but it seems that PI was actually hired by John Don Don, who is one step ahead of Morph here, already now having Deeze's complete file, and thanks to this we are able to fill in about who he is a bit more. As an adult, he tracked down his abusive father and murdered him, but dragged it out for days, slowly torturing him before burning him alive, after which he spent 2 decades in a hospital for the criminally insane, where Dees had many forms of experimental therapy done on him, essentially being treated as a human guinea pig. And after the hospital shut down, he moved to LA, where he got the job at the factory. Okay, whoa! So that is a pretty twisted backstory dump, showing us that Dees was definitely not your average man, especially after decades of being a scientific guinea pig. Clearly by that point, he would have to be completely mad and was, already pretty crazy before that, torturing and killing his father and all that, though perhaps it was his father's own abuse of Dees as a child that led him down this dark path in the first place. John, even though quite disturbed by the information given, still intends to leak the information to the press to taint Dees' image. But for now, it seems his hidden past will remain a secret, as John, now alone at the studio, who of course has his own recently purchased Dees pieces, brings an installation in the studio to life, a projector flipping on, briefly seeing Dees' face amongst the abstract images. Unplugging it has no effect, and when attempting to flee, finds the door won't open, passing by a weird little doll whose eyes come to life. On the screen, seeing what must be old footage of the Dees family during Halloween many years ago. Ah, happier times. A precariously placed bulb overhead begins to flicker, sending John up to investigate. A hand reaching out from above out of nowhere, grabbing John by his luscious scarf and strangling him to death. So long, John Don Don. We hardly knew you. I mean, you're just an idiot, so not a big loss really, except that no one still has any idea what's going on with the paintings. Though Morph starts to get his own first signs when in the middle of getting busy with Josephina, he's heavily distracted by a painting over her bed, staring intently until seeing things actually starting to move, and also visits an eye doctor for some kind of explanation to these hallucinations to no avail. Also with John's death, Piers is without representation, deciding to patch things up with Redora, and trying to get at the core of what he's struggling with, thinking he's afraid of something, encourages him to take a trip to her beach house to get away and recollect himself, artistically speaking. Well, that was nice of you to offer, Redora. Back at her old job, Gretchen is trying to convince him to put up a show for one of her artists, but gets turned down, and she is left alone going to check out the Sphere piece on display. Wonder where this is going, huh? Which would be fine normally, except for the nearby Dees painting, the eyes on it coming to life. She slides her arm into one of the holes, getting stuck, yanking on her arm to get free, the light underneath turning red, shooting out blood from all of the other holes, and she finally gets free, but minus an arm. This whole blood-shooting killer sphere thing sure seems like a reference to something. Boy! Yes, Phantasm, that's what I was trying to do. That certainly had to be an influence on this scene. And as relayed later, no one realized that Gretchen had actually been murdered, and just believed it to be part of the art piece, allowing people to walk all around it, including children playing in what they think is fake blood. Redora is growing increasingly concerned over the bodies piling up, especially as the paintings are a hit and the Dees exhibit is booming. But what to do? Things also start falling apart piece by piece for Morph, seeking sympathy for Gretchen's death from Josephina, instead finding her with another lover, the artist Damrich. He's incensed, thinking that they were just on a break, but Josephina tears him down to the core, saying she was never really into him, leaving Morph dejected and upset. His Dees-fueled hallucinations only get more severe, spotting an armless Gretchen on the side of a bus. And later, when going to review a soundscape exhibit, Dees is able to take over the mini speakers in the room, playing back a sea of Morph's previous negative reviews, getting louder and surrounding all around him, leaving him in an emotional puddle on the ground. He tries to explain everything to Redora, thinking that something really strange is going on here, linking all of the recent deaths and disappearances to Dees' art, finally figuring out that his art is essentially imbued with the spirit of Dees, as each one includes a bit of the artist himself, his blood. Speaking to the building manager, he discovered that the paintings were supposed to be destroyed, but as people took them for their own profit instead, this greed is what causes Dees' spirit to lash out violently, yelling for her to stop selling them and put all of them away. But she's not willing to give up the success and big price tag that the art is fetching. But with Morph threatening to publish an article that would expose all of this weirdness surrounding the artist, she is forced to act quickly and sell all of the paintings before the article comes out, which would cause them to lose their value in an instant. Publishing the article and rushing to stow away his own personal Dees collection, Morph enlists Coco to help him itemize it, revealing she has some dirt on his former boyfriend Ed, that he was working behind the scenes with Redora, using his opinions to know what to buy before his reviews actually came out, making it clear that no one in this world ever truly cared about anyone else and are exclusively in this business for themselves. Sorry Morph, should've known better. Josephine meets her boyfriend at a dingy bar, and he's decided to return to his old underground artist collective, leaving Redora and giving up his big upcoming show. She tries to convince him he's on the verge of breaking big and questioning what's the point of doing art if nobody ever sees it. Obviously not understanding the point of art is art for its own sake, not for profit, as all three of our remaining characters will learn the hard way, each getting their respective comeuppance at Dee's hand. Waiting for a tow truck, her phone is stuck on a specific Dee's painting, the wall behind her somehow changing and opening up a gallery revealed where the wall just was. Inside the gallery are various street art looking paintings. Seeing their paint is starting to drip off to the floor as Josefina walks by. Her phone suddenly works again, able to call Redora, who asks if she knew the paintings were supposed to be destroyed. But Josefina asks if that would have changed anything, and she agrees that it wouldn't, and that she couldn't have ever destroyed the art, calling Dee's a master. Even though she does regret her choices, she also admits that this art was too good to let go. Josefina not noticing as paint begins to crawl up her legs, then covering over her entire body, entering into her eyes and screaming, later seen assimilated into the graffiti on the wall. Though that's kind of weird. She turned into art. Neat. As Morph rushes to a storage unit to put away all of Dee's paintings, hearing something nearby. It's Hobo Man, who we heard was put in storage after the unsuccessful showing in Miami, and now brought back to life by Dee's, chasing him down and banging on the walls with his canes. Getting trapped in a dead end, Hobo Man catches up, grabbing Morph from behind and snapping his neck, hearing the bones breaking. Dang, poor Morph! He did try to do the right thing, but it was way too late. Should have just destroyed the paintings at first and not try to make all the money, and then start having a conscience once you started having hallucinations. You went too far, Jake Gyllenhaal. Only leaving Redora left. At home, she is entranced and a little perturbed by her own Dee's painting on display, deciding to take it down. Clearly, everything going on is starting to get to her. Distracted by her cat, she chases it outside, a huge statue coming loose and nearly crushing her. This experience is enough for her to finally get rid of all of Dee's work at her house, later feeling relieved sitting outside on the patio, joined by her cat, as two shadows grow in front of her. The positioning of everything seen here being an exact recreation of the painting Redora had in her bedroom. And even though his art is gone, it seems that recreating it in this sense still allows his spirit to get vengeance, taking over a different kind of art, yet still art all the same, the Velvet Buzzsaw tattoo on Redora's shoulder, the name of a punk band that she was in many years ago, which comes to life, the blade spinning, cutting her up and shooting out blood. Dee's completing his revenge on all those that try to profit from his works. Although this doesn't look like the end for his troubled, violent spirit. Coco leaves town, taking Dee's cat with her, seeing someone on the side of the road selling art. A haze box from Redora's gallery nearby. Assumedly, these are from the crashed guy's truck, and with these Dee's pieces still out in the world, he isn't yet gone for good. The art catching a walking couple's attention, and they buy one of the paintings for a measly $5, a fall far from the millions they were worth just days earlier. Assumedly, this would bring back Dee's spirit to kill once more, especially considering how many pieces this guy seems to have, as the man puts up another reasonably pleasant looking piece of art, a group and a sunset, the same that was stuck on Josefina's phone before her death. The only ones that were able to escape death in the end were those that rebuffed their greedier nature. Coco was more of an innocent bystander than anything else and wasn't really intrinsically involved beyond a bit of a gossiper, so that's why she got away. She didn't do anything. But then there's Damrish, the artist who made the conscious choice to turn his back on the world of Morph and the others, returning to his simple roots and putting art instead of commerce and fame as his priority. And in our final scene, it appears the same goes for our other artist peers, who we know was struggling with sobriety and artistic block, before taking a sabbatical at Redora's beach house. Putting himself safely far away from the Dee's murders, this allowed him to deal with those obstacles. Looking serene and calm, Piers scrawls intricate circles and designs into the beach's sand, spreading into many feet all around him, some of it already being washed away by the tide. What he's creating here is still art, but in a more simplistic, childlike sense, enjoying the mere process of drawing lines in the sand. He has fallen back in love with the artistic process, and that's what we were seeing here, now able to appreciate it even at its most basic level, which is heavily contrasted to the completely indulgent, ridiculous world of high art he was accustomed to. And by getting away from that celebrity culture-based, high-dollar world that was ultimately completely vacant and run by a bunch of insufferable morons, he is free of those shackles, and this allowed him to find himself. The overall takeaway here is pretty obvious, with all those consumed by greed and capitalizing on the discovered Dee's paintings meeting their gruesome ends at the hands of art itself. But there is another, perhaps more important lesson here. Don't follow after cats for no reason. It only leads to trouble, as in what kicks this whole thing off, with Josefina going into Dee's apartment and Redora following her Sphinx outside and nearly getting crushed in the process. So if you see a cat out there in the world, just leave it alone. Or, call it to you. And if it doesn't come, whatever, he'll come back later. But don't follow after, don't do it. Because that darn cat could be leading you to a killer hiding in a closet or an apartment full of supernaturally possessed paintings. I've seen it 100 times. Which Which brings us to the conclusion of this ending explained on Velvet Buzzsaw. I did still like it despite being less of a horror movie than anticipated, and appreciate the weird, experimental, and loose feel to it all. This is one of those kinds of movies that would have never come out theatrically, so it's cool that Netflix is such a content behemoth at this point that they can freely make this crazy kind of stuff without any worry in the first place. So while not the greatest movie ever or anything, it's still worthwhile and quite unique in many ways. What did you guys think of Velvet Buzzsaw and its ending? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. Thanks for watching FoundFlix. See you next time.